with Chestnut and also with obviously the McLean County ROSC Council. For something that I think is really neat that I think people should check out. For those of us who do remember reading Rainbow, LeVar Burton, since about 2017, has a podcast out there. It's called LeVar Burton Reads. And he does reading short fiction that's about it can be anywhere from 45 minutes to maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours long. And it's just nice little bites of stuff that you can listen to on your way to work, on your way home from work, or if you're on a road trip. And I call it reading Rainbow for adults.
Thanks, Kat.
My name is Ethan. I'm an outreach worker for Oxford House Inc. And I love the Rick and Morty show. It's my favorite.
That's a good call. Glad you covered one of mine.
I am Del Sam, and I work for Veterans Treatment Court. And I think I also volunteer as a CASA. So if you guys don't know what CASAs are, that'd be something to look up and check it out. But it's a court-appointed special advocate for children in foster care. And so you work one-on-one. So caseworkers may get assigned a lot of children, but a CASA just gets one kid at a time. So you can kind of do a deep dive for the judge. And so that's one of my volunteer activities.
Awesome. Thank you, Del. And then Corey Bruce.
Hi, Corey. I'm on the McLean County Health Department board and also on the Mental Health Advisory Board. And I'm also involved with the CAT grant project that I mentioned earlier. And I would say I've been taking this Allyship Institute through the YWCA and it has been absolutely fabulous. And they've given us all sorts of materials to read and things. And something that I had not experienced before and watched it's called 13th. It's about the 13th Amendment. And it's a documentary that was put together by Ava Duvernay. I'm going to murder her last name, Duvernay. And it is absolutely eye-opening, heart-opening, soul-opening. So I would really encourage you all to watch it. It's 13th is the documentary if you aren't already familiar with it.
Thank you. I had a feeling you were going to class up the joint a little bit. The documentary. Thank you. Bruce and then Kimberly.
Bruce Lang, representing Prairie Pride Coalition. Something to share. Okay. I've been watching a show from the 50s that I actually saw that when it first came out. It's called The Many Loves of Dobie Gillis.
Oh, jeez.
And it's free on Tubi. So you don't have to pay anything for it.
Wow.
It's got besides Dwayne Hickman, the star, it has the guy that played Gilligan on Gilligan's Island.
Yeah, and
Beatnik in it.
Maynard.
Yeah, and Tuesday Weld too, right?
G. Krebs.
Yeah, and Tuesday Weld, right? These are names nobody else here even knows what we're talking about.
Yeah, the cab driver from Wonderful Life, right? The dad, is that what you mean?
It is black and white, so be set for some monitor shock. It's not in color.
That's a great call, Bruce. I remember watching that at Nick and Night in middle school.
Yeah, well, like I said, I watched it the first time.
It's still good. Kimberly, then Michelle.
So I'm Kim West. I am with Bridgeway. I'm the Director of Community Employment Services. So I'm going to say, something that I want to share is not with TV or anything. So I feel kind of, I don't know, but we are looking for employment specialists in our Normal, Illinois area. So we are in need of 5 employment specialists, a job coach. So if you all know of anyone, please, they can apply to Bridgeway. They can contact me. I can be more than happy to share information about the job description and the requirements. But we are a very flexible positive company to work for. They'll work for me, and I'm always happy and cheering people on. So that's my news to share.
Thank you. It's great, Kim. You said it could be anything, so that's perfect.
Well, I have something to share, but I also have a PSA. A friend gave me this. It is coconut sparkling water, LaCroix. And if you like cold suntan lotion, the taste of cold suntan lotion, I recommend this. Otherwise, stay far away.
I don't think we're going to be a sponsor for this video now.
No, no, I'm trying to let you know it's not good. The other thing is there's a new app. It's called Novel Effect. And so if you're ever reading to kids, there are, I think, thousands of books in the app. It's free. And it adds, as you're reading, it recognizes where you are in the page as you're reading, and it will add sound effects. So if something is kind of scary or something falls, it'll have that. And it just kind of adds another level. The kids love it. So
What's the
What
name
is
of
that
that?
app called?
see,
What?
much better than this. Much better.
Novel
It's-
effect, right?
It's called Novel Effect. Mhm.
Cool. Thank you, Michelle.
Mhm.
I knew you'd have something interesting too. Amy, Sonia, and then Andrea, please.
Hello, Amy Hancock, Behavioral Health Program Manager for the Health Department. One thing to share, I was actually introduced to this yesterday. So Hannah Gaspy, she's an adult that has autism and a comedian. And she has a show on Netflix called Douglas, and she is hysterical. So that's my shout out.
Hi, I'm Sonia Workman with Chestnut Health Systems. I'm the Community Treatment Liaison, and I would have loved to share with you all the almost full moon that I saw this morning. I had an early appointment, so I was on the highway, and it was just gorgeous, just full and yellow, and I was watching it set as I was watching the sunrise behind my vehicle. So you can catch the full moon tomorrow, though, so you're not at a loss.
Right on. That's worthy information. Thank you for sharing.
Good afternoon. I'm Andrea. I work at Life Center. I work with the community reintegration program and help people transition out of nursing homes and facilities back out into the community. One thing I thought I'd share is the big thing we're known about at Life Center is our medical equipment loan program. So if you ever know anyone that needs equipment on a short-term basis, that's what we like people to know about us. It's how we get people in our doors and well, not really in our doors at this time with COVID, but that, you know, get them to where they can receive services through us. So that's what I have to share. Thank you. Unmute, Dan.
That's the second time I've done that. What kind of equipment are we talking about? Like walkers, crutches?
Yeah, walkers, wheelchairs, any type of durable medical equipment that can be cleaned easily. So we do have walkers, wheelchairs, canes, commodes, shower chairs, tub transfer benches, all sorts of things. So yeah.
Great. Thank you. Screen's moving a little. Let's go Chantel, Wendy. We're just doing introductions, who, why you're here, who you're representing, and then just something cool you want to share with the group, whether it's a TV show, something on the radio, a service in town, just whatever.
Okay, hi.
Chantel, we know you like to share things, so hit us with a good one.
Hi, I am Chantel Hunt. I am with Youth Bill McLean County. It's been a while since I've been able to join in the meeting since my transition back in October. So something that I would like to share. Well, you know what? There's this television show that I am watching is fairly new, and it's more so dealing with the school systems. Wish I could think of the name of it. It's on ABC, and I mean, it's really funny. I wish I could think of the name, which kind of caught me off guard because I'm like, what can I share? A lot of things started beaming off in my head of what I can share.
It's not AP Bio by chance, is it?
What you said? What's the name of it?
AP Bio. I don't even know if
No,
that's still on.
no, it's, you know what? Before the end of this, I'll probably come up with the name and I type it in the box. But it's a really good show because you see a lot of like The Office. It's something like The Office. If anybody's familiar with the TV show The Office, I had just really started watching it the past couple of years. And I'm just like, it's hilarious. But this is actually more so dealing with the school system. So it's kind of like The Office, but in the school system. And it's really new. It's on ABC. When I might Google a name after I'll be quiet and let the next person go. But
Abbott Elementary.
that's it. Abbott Elementary.
Okay, I have heard of that.
Yes, it is.
Ask a librarian. When in doubt, ask the librarian.
Yeah, how about it?
Thank you, Michelle, my friend. But thanks, friend, looking out for me. But yes, Abbott Elementary, that is fairly new. I'm watching it. It is so funny, so good. It's got a lot of rave reviews. So that's something new.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Wendy Ashford, and I am work at Carl Broman Medical Center. I'm the manager of therapist services and program development for addiction recovery and mental health unit. Something I want to share with you guys. Modern Family is a television show that's been on for a while, but I had never seen it. And my son introduced me to it, and now I cannot turn it off.
What's the name of it? What was it?
Modern Family.
Oh, yeah.
All right. I already got some good referrals here. So certainly last but not least, Sam and Abby, and then we'll jump into our presentation.
Hi, thanks. My name is Samantha Harrell. I am a substance use recovery case manager with the FUSE team. We're located, we're a part of the county, but we're located in the health department on the 5th floor. We also work in conjunction with the triage center on the 1st floor of the health department. Let's see. What I want to share is that I'm also the board president for the National Alliance on Mental Health, Mental Illness in McLean County. We cover Mid-Central, so also some of the surrounding counties. We have recently started our in-person support groups back up. So those support groups are for both individuals with mental health and also their friends and family. They're held at the same time. All the information is on our Facebook page at NAMI Mid-Central, but it's in person every 3rd Saturday from 1 to 2 at Morningstar Christian Church over off of Fort Jesse. And that's it.
Sam. Great. Appreciate you sharing that.
Thank you.
Hi, Sam.
Hi, Kim. Kim is my former supervisor, so it's so good to see her again. I transitioned from Bridgeway into my current role. So sorry, Kim.
Hi, everyone. My name's Abby. I'm a prevention specialist working under the State Opioid Response Grant, or SOR. People kind of call it different things. And the fun thing I want to share is a podcast I've been recently listening to. It's called the Sobriety Diaries, but it's really cool because it was created by someone who is in long-term recovery, but really just allows, each podcast episode is really just allowing someone to share their story and their journey with their recovery. And so it kind of goes along with people who are in long-term recovery, some people who are kind of new into that journey, and really cool, kind of giving people a good perspective into that journey and what people are going through. So definitely wanted to share that. I think really relevant to the work that we're all doing as well.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you. I haven't heard of that one.
Can you type that in the I'm sorry, can you type that in the chat so that I can see the name, please?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll put the link right to the podcast so you can just jump right to it.
Thank you.
If you're into like recovery speakers, that kind of thing, or looking for clientele, Mad Dog Recovery is another good one that has a lot of national speakers, but also workshops, breakdown, step breakdowns, that kind of thing, not just stories. And I'm going to cheat. I know I already gave one thing to share with the TV show, but what Abby just shared reminded me. Crime in Sports is another podcast that if you like to laugh at ridiculous things, I would recommend too. So it's a couple comedians do it. So anyway, I got my wife to like it on some recent road trips. So if she likes it, then think she's pretty tough to please. So moving on, thank you, everybody. Appreciate you being here. Some of you came a little bit after I mentioned at the open that one of the things we're really focusing on today is talking about the idea of a sober cafe or some kind of recovery center here in McLean County. And there's been some kind of just research work sort of in the backdrop. We haven't really talked too much about it with the ROSC Council, so we thought it'd be good to make this a topic so we can get some feedback from the council about, what would be some attributes of this type of facility that, would really fit our community best. What are some things that are maybe some concerns or some risks that we need to be aware of? And then we'll just kind of see where the discussion goes, gather some requirements, and then, we kind of have some tangible feedback to work with when we're talking to some of these other organizations that help set these up, some third parties. So with that, Kat is the person who's really our head person on the topic of Sober Cafe and RCO development. So she's going to give us the presentation, and after that, we will just have a discussion. Hi, Dorothy, welcome. Dorothy, in our introductions, our icebreakers, I know you like icebreakers. We had to share something with the group that we just thought was cool, whether it be like a movie, a TV show you're binging, something in town that you want to make sure people are aware of, a job opportunity, could be anything.
Well, I'm watching the Equalizer. My name is Dorothy Davis. I'm the regional coordinator for Parents Care and Share at Children's Home and Aid. So I'm watching it's not a Netflix series, it's actually Paramount, and it's got Queen Latifah in it, and it's called The Equalizer, and it's really good. It's really like, she has her quirky sense of humor, but it's kind of like a crime show too. So that's what I'm binging on right now.
You know who likes that show and talks about it a lot? Howard Stern.
Wow.
I'm serious.
It's good.
All right, Kat, if you're ready, go ahead and take it away.
Kat, you're muted. You're muted.
There we go. Can everybody hear me? Okay, so today's presentation is just going to be a brief overview of 3 of the different options we are looking at for a recovery community initiative within McLean County. These are specifically recovery community organizations, recovery community centers, and recovery cafes. A recovery community organization is defined as an independent nonprofit organization led and governed by representatives of local communities of individuals in recovery from a substance use disorder. A recovery community organization has 3 core principles. A recovery vision that enhances the quantity and quality of support and mobilizes individual and community recovery resources. Authenticity of voice. This means that the organization is peer-led and peer-driven and is self-governing and is accountable to the local recovery community. Core activities for a recovery community organization include education and awareness, advocacy, peer leadership and workforce development, community recovery assets and needs assessments, development of community recovery resources, support and contribution to research, recovery-focused outreach programs, delivery of peer recovery support services, support for other developing recovery initiatives within the community, recovery celebration events, and also collaboration with other recovery supports within the community. Best practices for a recovery or community organization look like the following. It is a nonprofit organization, a 501c3. It is led and governed by the local recovery community, with the majority of the governing body being in recovery. Primary focus of any activities and efforts is specifically recovery from substance use disorder. A recovery community organization is a grassroots effort starting within the community. They use participatory processes, which means involving the local communities of recovery through different means, such as listening sessions in community halls, to go ahead and establish priority setting and decision making. And then it's also at the heart of it, delivery of peer recovery support services. It embraces the maxim of all pathways to recovery. It promotes diverse, equitable, and inclusive policies, practices, and services. It utilizes recovery-friendly language, and it also has a code of ethics and grievance policies in place to protect those delivering services and receiving services, along with a way for any issues to be presented that need to be solved. The second option is a recovery community center. This is defined as a center or hub that organizes recovery networks regionally and nationally to facilitate supportive relationships between individuals in recovery, as well as family and friends of people in recovery. Centers may provide advocacy training, peer support organization meetings, social activities, job linkage, and other community-based services. This comes from the same all pathways to recovery approach. It does not function as a drop-in center, which is a service agency center for those experiencing homelessness or a mental health disorder, nor does it function as a 12-step clubhouse or treatment agency. The first nationally recognized recovery community center in the US, which is the Connecticut Community for Addiction Recovery, has outlined the core elements of a recovery community center as the following. It is a recovery-oriented sanctuary anchored in the heart of the community. It is in a visible and prominent location as to put a face on recovery and make recovery visible. It serves as a physical location for delivery of peer recovery support services. These services are delivered by volunteers. That includes individuals who are in recovery, friends, family, allies, and people of the general community. It serves as a recovery resource for the community and anybody who is seeking to initiate recovery. People who are still actively using substances are able to come into the Recovery Community Center to receive assistance, or if they just need a safe space to be for the day, they're able to get that too. The Recovery Community Center model has a structured schedule throughout the day, throughout the week, of the different services offered. This includes recovery coaching, support meetings, workshops, trainings, classes, educational sessions, along with recovery-friendly social events and recreational opportunities. The third option we're looking at is the Recovery Cafe National Model. This is based off an organization that started in Seattle and went to create its own national network that they have a specific model for. It is defined by the founder of the organization as a supportive community which welcomes men and women from all backgrounds and spiritual traditions, and as a healing center in a cafe setting. And the cafe term came from the original location having what they would have as a latte hour where people could get specially made coffee drinks, along with they would also have a community meal time. They have two main beliefs, which are we are all recovering from something, and there are multiple pathways to recovery. The Recovery Cafe National Model operates off a philosophy of radical hospitality. And the essence of this is to welcome men and women who have suffered homelessness, addiction, and other mental health challenges into a community where they can come to know that they are loved and that they have gifts to share. The Recovery Cafe model has 6 core commitments. These are creating a community space that is drug and alcohol free, nurturing structures of loving accountability called recovery circles, which serve as an all recovery type of meeting, empower each member to become a contributor, raise up member leaders, ensure responsible stewardship of resources. And this is the most recent one within the last probably 2 or 3 years, work to end systemic racism and socioeconomic inequality so every person can thrive. The Recovery Cafe model operates off a set of guiding principles as opposed to hard and fast strict rules. These include show respect, cultivate compassion, give back, connect with the love of ourselves and others, practice forgiveness, and encourage growth. For participation within the Recovery Cafe model, it is membership-based. Membership comes at no cost to people wishing to become a member. There are, however, 3 core requirements for becoming a member. These include being 24 hours at drug and alcohol free before entering the cafe space, attending your weekly recovery circle meeting, and then contributing in some way to the cafe community, whether that's volunteering to help run the cafe, or if somebody's just having a hard time, just sitting with them and giving them support. And then for a beginning cafe, the main components you'll see are the weekly recovery circles, and that consists of doing a recovery check-in where people present, okay, these are the issues I had in recovery this past week. These were the highlights of some of my successes, and also setting an intention or goal for the next week. And that also, those basic components also include the community meal time. Added components as the cafe grows include the School for Recovery classes. This includes partnering with the different approaches to recovery, whether that's NA, AA, Smart Recovery, Celebrate Recovery. They can come in and do classes through the cafe. These classes also include coping skills, life skills, and possibly some special interest skills or classes as well. Sober social events. This does include family-friendly programming along with community-wide events as well. There are community involvement opportunities to volunteer at the cafe, also to go ahead and get involved with becoming a community partner. And they also have recovery resources, and that would serve as linkage and to other recovery resources within the community. And that is the last and final option we are looking at. So I've got just a couple of questions for discussion for everybody just to kind of reflect on. What most interests you about each option? And then what access barriers do you see for each option?
Thank you, Kat. You know, we also want to, in addition to barriers and what we like, just in terms of, you know, what this community needs is kind of, we were trying to think about this. You know, if my ass is on fire, so to speak, and I'm, you know, about to use, or I'm really struggling, you know, what's the place I'd really go seek out, you know, is kind of the way I'm trying to think about this. But first, let's just open it up for any comments, questions. I noticed that a few people did join in the middle of the presentation, and basically what we're discussing today is the idea of some kind of recovery community center or sober cafe or some kind of gathering point where people can come for resources, whether it be a drop-in center or more of like the sober cafe. where there's like membership, let's just open it up and see what people think.
Hi, I'm Antoinetta Roundtree, and I did come in at the end, but what I did hear was out of the box thinking. And what I know from being a substance user and knowing that my situation was not a cookie cutter situation is that it's going to take some of that out of the box thinking to help to heal those of us that need it. I did go to treatment facilities, both inpatient and outpatient, and I felt more like using while I was there than I had when I was at home, just going through whatever it is that I was going through. So I'm just really excited to see what the outcomes are like, because I believe that it will benefit the community as a whole.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm glad you're here. We met a few years ago, you may not remember, but what we need are people with lived experience in this conversation. A couple of things to add. In some of our initial meetings with the Sober Cafe organization, We Bloom, we did have at least one person from the recovery community who's been sober for several decades. There was a sober bar called Promises in downtown Bloomington, probably been at least 15 years now. I don't know if anybody here remembers it. It was before my time, but it was, he described it as well attended, and it was really what he thought people needed in terms of the games, the recreation, the fellowship. But it just ran out of, it wasn't financially sustainable. So it was, people liked it, but within the recovery community itself, they weren't able to continue, to sustain it. So obviously any kind of RCO or effort like this, funding will be a big part of the discussion, as we get to it, whether that comes through grants or local philanthropy or what. Another thing to be aware of about the Sober Cafe model is it has pretty limited hours of operation. Kat, can you confirm that? As far as you don't have to, I'm not worried about the exact hours.
The recovery cafe option.
Yeah.
I think that one can vary depending on the cafe, but starting out, it does usually have limited hours. From what I've looked at for the cafes up in Indiana, it's taking them at least a couple years to get up and off the ground to have more days a week where they are able to have more hours. But I don't think they're open more than maybe 7 or 8 hours a day up in Indianapolis. And that's after, maybe 2 or 3 years at this point.
Okay. Yeah, the one schedule I looked that was in one of the handouts or materials, it was even less. It was like 4 hours a day, 3 or 4 days a week. And, that's great while it's open, but, we're missing a lot of potential prospects, if it's not something that's open, as much as possible, I guess. There was also in addition to the Promises bar, Chestnut actually had donated their old health clinic. It's 720 West Chestnut. There's that single story building next to the new clinic. That used to be a recovery center that, people within the recovery circles volunteered to sign up for shifts to, keep it staffed. It had television, it had billiards, it had a lot of meeting rooms for actual support group, 12-step meetings. It had some nice features. It ended up ultimately kind of getting overrun by, there's just a lot of rumors and allegations of drug dealing in the parking lot and things like that. It ended up again, for whatever reasons, you know, not continuing after, I think it was open maybe 2 years. You know, so there are concerns about this kind of thing, but on the other hand, there's so much potential good it can do, you know, in terms of not just the safe harbor aspect and the fellowship, but, you know, getting linked to, you know, peer specialists or, you know, meetings in town, just all the different services. That's kind of what I personally like, the idea of just a recovery center where you can almost as much as possible be like a one-stop shop, you know, you can have the games and the pool and the kind of things you might expect, you know, if you go out with your friends, you know, in the evening or just want to have some fun. But, you know, there's also people that are actually working there, whether they're being, you know, paid or volunteered, and, you know, just kind of keeping it, having that professional element, I guess, to keep the wheels on the road, if that makes sense.
I think I'm need a whole lot more information, and I may have less than everybody else on this call, but I'm having a little bit of trouble differentiating how the three are distinctly different from one another. And so it sounds to me like the Recovery Cafe has more of a life skill component to it. It's more like got some more educational opportunities than maybe some of the others, which are maybe more just availability of support and connection. Is that accurate, that one offers more skill-based opportunity than the other? Am I correct in that?
I mean, I think that's fair to say that the Sober Cafe does definitely offer like the educational opportunities and that kind of thing. You know, ultimately it's whatever we want it to be, you know, in terms of a recovery center. But, and I understand how, yeah.
Do you mind if I hop in here for a minute once you're done, and I'll try and give a little bit better explanation?
Yeah, if you could just hit the high points on the distinctions between the three again.
Yeah, so the big thing with the Recovery Cafe model is that's a national model unto itself. It's like the idea of a franchise, like, okay, you know, we're interested in starting a burger joint here. Well, we could franchise and go with the Recovery Cafe model, which we can quote unquote call McDonald's and have our own franchise of that.
Okay.
Or it's like, okay, we're going to start our own small town, you know, mom and pop restaurant. So that's a little bit of delineation into that. The RCO in practice is a independent entity unto itself. It's got very specific guidelines you have to fulfill to become registered as that with the Association of Recovery Community Organizations. It's like a standalone 501c3.
Okay.
And it's its own like independent organization. A recovery community center is kind of a one-stop and shop for a lot of different things. That is, you can get recovery coaching services. You're able to attend support group meetings. You can do stuff as far as like maybe you need treatment referral. You are able to get referrals to treatment from there. You're needing linkage to different community resources like, hey, I just got released from Chestnut, but I'm just walking out the clothes off my back. I need, you know, a safe space. So for a recovery community or center, if that were the case, it would be like, okay, hey, we're going to go ahead and get you referred over here to say Oxford House. And we would link up with Ethan and be like, hey, we've got somebody who needs to get into stable housing right now. So that a recovery community center is just kind of one stop and shop, which I see that as being like the best option for McLean County, because with that we can look at the different things I've been researching for options, and we can be like, oh, we like this bit of this model here and we like that, but this doesn't really fit us, and we can customize it to whatever we want. And then later on down the road, you know, as we're building and growing, it can be a case of, well, if we're needing more funding, they do have types of accreditation / credentialing for the organization that makes it look very attractive to people who are funding. And that can come later down the road. And it's honestly, that's probably one of the other big differences is how you get credentialed for being like all nice and official.
I think, I mean, that's kind of an interesting way that you put it, but I think when I hear you talk about this stuff from a business kind of background here, you know, starting up something new, like location matters, and things like that. And so you can say, hey, historically, we've had other things in the town that haven't passed. But I guess one of my first questions would be like, how many people do you think would use this for a community of our size? How many, you know, so if you're, you know, if you only got 10 people, then how much funding do you throw at something that only supports 10 people? If it's 50 people, you know, do you look at a bigger model? So I don't know, Kat, if you know the answer to that, but I mean, how many people do you think would actually want to use this?
The idea is to make it kind of attractive as possible, not just to people in recovery, but community partnerships of like, okay, because it could also be, could be people looking to seek recovery, or, you know, maybe if we had an issue with HIV or AIDS in here, we could do harm reduction services. There's so many different ways you can go with it. It doesn't have to be all those things. That's just what they have as best practices. For the amount of people who use it initially, I couldn't tell you starting out.
The recovery community in town is big. You know, we have, just even AA events alone, you know, like annual roundup, you know, there's over 200 people, and that's just, you know, that's not even including CR and other paths of recoveries. You know, in terms of the potential population that could be served, I think it's big. You know, I don't think that's a concern. I think some of the other questions I have are getting everybody to play in the sandbox nice, the different recovery, you know, there's certain folks that been around 20, 30 years, you know, things have been that way, or, you know, previous places they had similar were that way, and that's the way it needs to be, you know, or the idea of a harm reduction service would be very, you know, almost offensive to certain folks, you know, so there's some of that we need, and that's also part of why we're trying to get folks involved, you know, who are embedded in the recovery community to buy into this and help us shape this too. So, you know, we're not going through all this to create something that ultimately people don't want, or it's not the right fit for this community, right?
So I guess where I'm getting at though, like if I start up a new business, I'm writing up a business plan that's easy to kind of show how I'm going to do marketing, how many people I think are going to be there, stuff like that. And I don't feel like you guys have got a lot of that kind of stuff here. So you're talking about 3 different types of kind of programs, but you're not really explaining what you think you're going to serve or how you're going to do that. And so it makes it hard to kind of analyze what you're going to do. But what I would say is, like, when you do kind of get some of those answers and look at it, picking an option that supports kind of where you're weak at is probably a good way to look at it. So, hey, if we think we're going to need money and this program over here gives us accreditation, which is going to help bring in donors, great. You know, so where do we think we're going to need the most help with this? If we want to be more independent because we think we can fund stuff on our own, then maybe we want to go with that small mom and pop shop kind of deal. So you're asking for decisions a little bit before you're giving us kind of answers, I think, almost.
I apologize if the impression that we wanted a decision, you know, we're just looking for discussion and feedback here.
Yeah.
So
this was more of an educational overview of what we're looking at. This is not by and large like everything we're looking at doing. This is just what I was tasked with researching, and it's what I came back to Chestnut and the ROSC Council with. The big thing I think we're trying to achieve here is getting feedback on this for what does the community think, what do they want. Because if it's not what people within the community want, there's no point in trying it because it's not gonna get up off the ground.
Antoinette, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I did. Okay, so again, from a recovery and just recently just being out of prison and I know I was messed up something seriously decent, and it took years and years going in and out of the different recovery centers. Nothing worked for me. I didn't want to be involved in any of that stuff. So I literally would go to my classes and go home and get high as hell. So to be able to do things on my own pace over this past 2 years, having an outlet and being able to reach out to people at my own pace was more beneficial than any center or anything that I had ever done. And again, I will say that if there is a place that I can go, and I even being in Chestnut, talking to other folks while I was there, I mean, if there was an alternative to the current, I believe that it would excite a lot of folks, because a lot of times people just don't have that outlet. They don't have anywhere to go except for to that same house that they know that those same things are done, but they don't have anywhere else to go. So it's not like they just want to be there. They're forced into being there because of course they don't want to have to go deal with sitting inside Chestnut or sitting inside this place and having to deal with this person or that person, and which those kind of things. But this is more of an open door. You can come in, you can leave, you can do what you want to do. You can get this service if you want it, or you can get this service if you want it. You don't have a court order telling you that you've got to do this, that, or the other. It's simply something that you're doing on your own. And most times, and I can only really speak for myself, when I wanted it, I went for it and I did it. But if it's not available, then it's just not available. And the things that I'm grateful for is that I have a circle of people that I could reach out to outside of any centers. They're just people that I know that wanted to see me succeed and win in what I'm doing. But I think if there was a facility or if there was a place that people would be able to visit and get some of those tools, because I mean, we hear stuff all the time, don't mean we're going to use them right now, but they still resonate within us. And so then when we're ready for it, you know, we know that that information is there and we know that that place is there, and I know that they'll help me at my pace.
Thank you, Antoinette. Corey, I see you're putting your hand up. Amy's had hers, and then we'll get to you, Corey. Go ahead, Amy.
Okay, so and I know like we're just having a discussion, and I kind of also I can't remember all the different options. But I like to know like there are different options. So anyways, my random thoughts are, I kind of feel like this is like the next step as part of like the ROSC. So the ROSC was created, however, I don't know, 3 years ago or whatever. And so like, I feel like Dan, like this is kind of something like we've kind of like dipped in a little bit, like here and there, kind of talked about like what. So like right now, like pre-pandemic, we would meet at different places, or now of course, like virtually, but we've always just kind of talked about like, what is this like physical structure? Like, is this physical structure of like place, like people can come to, and like there wasn't, and so I agree with like Dell too, like what are some of like the logistics that we're looking at? Because I don't think it can be, as much as we want to be inclusive, obviously, but we can't, it's not going to be it's open to everyone, but it's not going to meet every need. Right. So, because we've talked, there's a lot, we feel like leisure activities is like, how do you have like those fun times? You have your different 12-step or other support groups that maybe do different activities. And so that kind of helps that meet that need. But then, like you said, Dan, sometimes that can get like, well, how do you have to introduce yourself this way? And which is fine for some people, and then some people it closes them off. And so I just I feel like maybe as far as like next steps, like my thoughts, that doesn't have to be followed in any way. But as far as my thoughts, like next steps isn't like necessarily defining what all of these different things are, like Recovery Cafe or whatever. Next steps is like, what do we really want to target? Is it people that need services, and this is a place that, you know, has a navigator, a case management navigator, and they can give that information? Is it, because, and I love Ethan's, like, I don't love that Ethan likes Rick and Morty, but I love Ethan, like even like the harm reduction. And love the concept of harm reduction, but then there's also that kind of other piece is like the, you know, if people have been using, or if they're using different substances in place of a different substance, does that put others at risk that aren't using anything? And so, or is that something where we want to be, so these are just part of that controversy. Like, are these things that like, no, we want to make sure this is inclusive of all pathways, including harm reduction. And so I feel like, anyways, that's my thoughts, is just kind of like, what exactly, like, how do we picture this? Who do we want there? And I agree with you too, Dan, that I feel like at least like starting off, like there has to probably be paid staff, because they're like, you have to like get established to build up. And then my last comment, and I'll stop talking, is that I was also thinking, like you said, Dan, like there's tons of people in McLean County that are in the recovery community. And it's such a wide spectrum of like different people that are in the recovery community. Like, would it make sense for us to like try to reach out to some of those groups, or reach out to those folks and say, hey, like, this is our vision, this is what we want, like, and we need your direct commitment, like on how you're going to help support us, or like get their buy-in to help support.
Yeah, you know, like focus groups might be good, that kind of thing. But yeah, not just focus groups to get input, but like you're saying, you know, how, and what Dell was talking about, like with the business plan, you know, how is this going to, you know, the strategy for keeping it sustainable is kind of what I'm hearing.
Yeah, so we're gonna put, Dan, we're gonna put you in a suit and have you travel McLean County and get these people committed.
I came to work for Chestnut, so I didn't have to wear a suit after 15 years.
I can teach you how to tie the tie. You'll be good.
I know. I worked in the corporate world 15 years, but thank you. Okay, so we're up on 4:30 here. Corey, you also had your hand up earlier. Sorry.
I was just going to ask, like, would there be some entity, either an organization, social service, you know, entity, or whatever, that would kind of be the overarching, for lack of a better word, owner of this, you know, so that there would be somebody that, so it was, I realize it could be a 501(c)(3), but would it be under the umbrella of some organization that would give it gravitas, you know, right off the bat? And yeah, and be also the person that might be in charge of, you know, training, hiring, blah, blah, blah. Initially. Yeah.
To answer your question, I believe for now, Chestnut's going to be the fiscal agent.
Okay, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, should have mentioned that. So yeah, the plan would be after a couple of years to hand it off to the recovery community. And, you know, this is early stage. This is something that since the beginning we've been talking about as like part of our long-term strategy, you know, even in our original strategic plan, we had like a recovery center / cafe as like our 5-year goals, you know, so this isn't like, hey, let's make a call today and we're just going to go off and, you know, start this.
Oh, for sure. My other question was, it sounds like you've been in touch with some other entity that's doing this, that, because you were talking about Kat, you were talking about the place that's been up for 2 years, and they're, you know.
Yeah, part of my research I have been in contact with multiple different organizations between Indiana and Illinois.
Okay.
And the other thing is each community's efforts evolve differently, and they're working towards the same goals, but it's going to look different from community to community. But I know starting out, it will be small, but as it grows, you can add on.
But what I was wondering is if there's some that are really well established, you know, even that have been up and going for 5 or more years.
Oh, yeah. There are several across the US. I mean,
we could also learn from. Yeah.
Yeah, there are several all over the Northeast coast. Okay. That's where some of my research has been pulled from, where they've been evaluating the efficacy of these programs. But that's still very much in its infancy, though, for research.
But in some ways, it's almost like doing the backward mapping, where you start with, you know, if we have someplace that's managed to sustain over time and they've already, you know, managed to get through some barriers, it would be great to, you know, figure out maybe we could avoid some pitfalls that they.
Oh, yeah.
Would
Lessons
point us
learned
about
from them is what to do and what not to do. That's how they established the best practices for these different types of organizations. Is it's like, this is what we found to work most effectively.
Okay.
Yeah. In my mind, that's the appeal of the sober cafe model, is that it's kind of turnkey and been done a dozen times. You know, there's that legacy in place, or whatever you want to call it. So some next steps. One of the things we also plan to do in the next couple months is bring in a couple of guest speakers that specialize in establishing recovery community organizations, so they can also help explain what that is better. I know that's not an easy, it's not easy grasping all that, you know. Even Angi and I struggle with it sometimes, you know, the nuances between RCC, RCO. So I think that education will help. Eventually, you know, another subcommittee or work group to tackle this will probably be the direction we'll end up. But we just wanted to at least kind of progress the notion of this, you know, and kind of put it in front of people, get some initial feedback, and, you know, that's basically what the goal is today. I feel like we
Can you put out like a timeline next month on kind of how you see things progressing? So again, like that's kind of business planish too, right? Like, so, you know, you've got in your head, you guys have got timelines, you've got concepts on how you want to do this stuff, but like I would like to see kind of when you want
to see that communicated. I don't know what that is.
That's the beauty of starting a business. Sometimes you just throw darts and make, and so I can tell you when I started up my own stuff, a lot of times you just have to pick something out in the future. Hey, I want to start this in 8 months. Now it might happen in 9 months, it might happen in 7 months, but if you don't start making goals, you'll just keep doing meetings you'll just kind of tread water. And so what I'm saying is, like, part of being successful at these things is building a timeline, even if you don't know exactly what it is, and just saying, hey, this is a tentative timeline. And as we get closer, we'll start locking things in place. But, you know, hey, we want to start this within 2 years, or hey, we want to start in 3 years. It doesn't matter what your answer is, but like having that timeline to here's what the milestones that we need to achieve. And that will help you. Once you start putting those milestones out there, then you'll start going places. More people will be able to get on board because they can see what you're trying to do.
To speak to that, I know there's a grant that they're looking at for funding that's got from SAMHSA that is coming up for the deadline pretty soon. There's talks for going after that for funding. Also, we should have, at least I think, if we're running with what my work plan was for my service here with the AmeriCorps, we should have a working business plan hopefully by July, because I know we're pitching for funding.
Yeah, just put that all on a timeline so it makes it easy for people to understand what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Has there been a needs assessment done by the people that you would assume might be the consumers of whatever this entity is determined to become? I mean, I'm sure you do tons of needs assessments within the community, but I just don't know if
we've done, you know, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. We did one initially with the ROSC for the community in general. We've not done one specifically for this effort, and I think that's also good feedback. You know, when I think about some of the focus groups and engaging the recovery community, you know, I think that'll be part of it. You know, so again, good advice. We're at 4:36, so I want to kind of let people go. This is obviously a kind of to be continued thing. I did want to just quickly pitch Thursday at 1 o'clock. There is a new work group launching. I'm sorry, is it 11 o'clock?
11 a.m. Yeah.
It's the same. Is it the same Zoom code as this? Angie's code? Pretty sure.
Nope. I have my own. I think I sent it to her.
Okay. Well, email me or Angie if you're interested in the Zoom link for 11 o'clock Thursday. It's a 1 hour meeting. Basically, it's the work group for recruitment and retention for the ROSC. Particularly getting people with lived experience and keeping them. So that's another worthy work group if you're interested in that. We still want to get a family alumni group launched. Just trying to conjure up some interest in that. And eventually I'm sure we'll get one launched for this recovery community organization work. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time. Thanks for all the good tips on cool stuff to check out. So going to add to the TV and book and documentary lists. And you all have a great rest of your week.
You too, Dan. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Dan. Thanks, Kat.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a
Thank you.
good night.
Good night.